Hello everyone, whenever or wherever you're joining in with the congregations of the Inishowen 4 as we have our final midweek moment finishing up our Who Are We series. So on the Sundays past we were looking at our final answer to this huge question as we looked at our identity and we said we are the church. Now church is a big word with plenty of baggage, so we broke it down using two pictures that the Bible paints for us of what the church is. So we had body and bride. Body, 1 Corinthians 12, and bride, Ephesians 5. Please do take the time to read over those passages again, even before we continue on here in our midweek. It'd be really good for you to take the time and read over them. I'm not going to read them because we're always sort of stretched for time. So why don't you take the moment to pause this video and read those passages, reflect, maybe take some notes, and then we're going to continue on thinking about these passages. As we looked at those two things for body, the word that we wanted to go along with that was connected. We looked at how we're connected in cross-formed and cross-shaped relationships. And then for bride, the word that we wanted to go along with that was bought. We looked at how what Jesus did on the cross was that he bought back his bride. How his death paid the debt that our rebellion and our running away to all the other lovers of this world leveled on our shoulders. And as we looked at that idea of bought, we brought it back round to how vitally important and central it was to being connected. That we couldn't be connected as Christ's body without Jesus having bought us as his bride. But because of him, because of what he's done, we can be connected and we are connected. But we didn't only think about that though, we went deeper. We considered how this connection comes with cost, how there's a cost in disconnecting, how traveling that distance is detrimental and ultimately destructive. It's a path that we walk down, and when we do so, we devalue ourselves and others. And it's a path that actually, if we travel down, will lead to deep depression, spiritual, mental, physical. We looked at how there's not only a cost in disconnecting, but in being disconnected. How our lives here, without being connected to Christ, are on time-limited life support that will run out. We also looked at the cost of being connected, how to have these cross-formed and shaped relationships on the horizontal with each other comes at a cost to us. It humbles our pride. It comes at a cost of willingness for us to actually fade into the background and to be an unseen yet indispensable part of Christ's body as the church. Then most importantly and transformationally and foundationally, we looked at how the cost for us to be connected has been paid by Christ on the cross, and how now he calls his family to come. For this midweek moment, as we finish up this series and think about church, I want us to open up and have an honest conversation together about our connection, about your connection. And here's the big question. How is your connection? How is your connection? We are asking this because for even the most dedicated and disciplined of disciples of Jesus, there comes times when we are tempted to disconnect. And we can travel that road of distance between us and our God. And though our status can never change, our enjoyment of the relationship that we have with God can change. I'm going to put up a table from Brian Chappell's book, Unlimited Grace, to help distinguish the difference between what can and what can't change in our relationship with God. Something that's really helpful for us to get into our heads and into our hearts. I'll put it up again at the end with all the relevant footnotes so that you can see what he's talking about with some of those little letters beside some of the words. But for us now, we are thinking about our connection. And the first step we need to take is to diagnose what our connection is like. I've given us three options. The first is that we are connected. The second is that we are disconnecting. And the third is that we are disconnected. So connected, disconnecting, disconnected. And really, if we're honest, it's those latter two, disconnecting and disconnected, that we probably predominantly occupy. Distance can grow for the Christian, and we need to recognize that, and we also need to remedy it when we see it. And similarly, we cannot let being disconnected, whether that's you or someone else, go unchecked and unchallenged, because that distance is ultimately deadly. So let's do the difficult work of diagnosing our connection. Where are you at? Are you connected? Are you disconnecting? Are you disconnected? Do you maybe not even know? And if you're in that last category of being unsure, if that's the case for you, make contact. My number is always available at the end of these videos. Why don't you phone? We can have a chat, grab a coffee. It'd be good to talk to you and do some of this diagnostic work together. So what is disconnected? Disconnected is when you're living at a complete distance to God. You're not only distant from Him and to Him, but all you have is disregard for Him. Disregard for Him, for His Word, for what Jesus has done. The scary thing about this disconnection is that you can still be a person who participates in the life of the local church, but not connected. You can be a person who turns up, who even takes part, but you're not a part because you aren't connected to Christ and His church. And realize and recognize that you can't be connected to one without being connected to the other. If you're connected to Christ, you're connected to His church. There's no optional extra in being part of Christ but not being connected to His church. If that describes you, a participant but not connected, if you aren't connected to Christ by grace and faith through trusting in what He's done for His family and dying on the cross and rising again, then you aren't connected. You are disconnected. And this disconnection comes with the terrible consequence of eternal distance away from God's mercy and grace and love. But maybe that's not you. Maybe for you it's the disconnecting. The temptation to disconnect, to travel that distance away from God and His people, from Christ and the church. How do you know if you're disconnecting? Well, look at the distance. Is there distance between you and God, between you and His church? How strong is your connection to church? How strong are these horizontal relationships? What's your attendance like? What's your participation like? What's your engagement like? What's the distance between you and God? Has prayer stopped? Has Bible reading tailed off? Have those Christian conversations disappeared? When you stop talking to and listening to someone you love, distance has grown. And when your heart has grown cold so that your love for them is only embers rather than the fire that it should be, distance has grown. If you feel that, if you know that, if that describes you, you do need to realize how detrimental this is for you and for the church. As part of Christ's body, you are an indispensable, invaluable asset. A person for whom God in his great mercy has given up the life of his Son, for whom Jesus has come, Son of God, who gave himself for me. A person who God will one day transform with resurrection into something which, as C.S. Lewis put it, if we were to see today, we would be tempted to bow down and worship. You may think that your absence, your distance, that it goes unnoticed, or that it doesn't matter, but it does. It disrupts the mission of the church because you are part of God's purpose. And just like if one part of the human body was cut off, it would impact the rest. Or we could function, we can function, but we don't work at full capacity. And not only is it detrimental for the church at large, it's detrimental for you personally. Distance from God only grows a spiritual depression, which can lead to some terrible darkness. And the distance from him also means that stepping outside the parameters of protection that he's placed for life only becomes easier and easier. And that can lead us to face cost and consequences that are not good for us. So what is your connection like? Then maybe the most important part of this. What's the cure for cut off connections? What's the cure for the disconnected and the disconnecting for people like us? The answer's simple. Close the distance. And close the distance at all cost, because the cost of not closing this distance is all the greater. For both the old disciple and the new, this will mean cost. We will have to climb over the dead bodies of our old loves, our idols, our ambitions, our dreams, our plans, and I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that at times that will be hard. It may even be one of the most excruciatingly painful things that you will ever have to do. But it's a cost that needs to be counted for the sake of Christ. And just as I tell you that there is a cost for us, I have the joy of telling you how the cost of being able to come close, of being able to close that distance, has been paid. The path has been paved for you to come. It's been paved by Christ and what he's done. The toll has been paid. The path is clear in one sense. The door is open. The way is there before you. Jesus' words, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And the person of Jesus, he stands in front of you with arms open wide, ready to receive. Jesus in front of us, the author, the perfecter of our faith, and he's the focus for the disconnected and the disconnecting. He will transform our connections, whether they were non-existent before or whether they were straining. As we see him, what he's done to connect us, buying back his bride, connecting us in these cross-formed and cross-shaped relationships, we will be transformed. We will start to see and know what love he has for us and what love he has for others. And as we know that, it will start to change our connections in the vertical and the horizontal. We will look at these people, all the people around us, the people connected as his bride, with such deep love, because we know the bond that has joined us together, what has caused this connection. We will look at someone else and go, Christ died for you too. So how could I not love you? How could I not be close to you? How could I not want to be connected to you? We are family. And as we look at what he's done for us personally, grace results in gratitude, a desire to never be far away from him, to always have the distance closed. And our connection only grows stronger the closer we come to him. And as that connection only goes stronger, motivated by his love, we'll find that we'll never want the same distance again. So even those times when we're tempted to disconnect and maybe we travel a road of distance, we'll find ourselves never going too far. His love will always draw us back. Please do take time to reflect on your connection with Christ and his church. Read through 1 Corinthians 12, verses 12 to 27. Read through Ephesians 5, 22 to 32. Think about what Paul says there about who we are and about what Jesus has done to make us the church. And why not even open up the first 3 chapters of Hosea and have what God calls Hosea to do for Goma hit into your heart as a reflection of what Jesus has done for Gomers like us. See what God calls Hosea to do to close the distance, and realize that's nothing to what Jesus has done to close the distance between him and his bride, so that we may be connected as his body forever. As always, thanks for joining with me. Take care, stay safe, and God bless.